This is Cornstalks and Sports Talk, your go-to Iowa-based sports show, hosted by the one and only Elliot Clough.
For the ones who work hard to ensure their crew can always go the extra mile, and the ones who get in early so everyone can go home on time, there's Grainger, offering professional-grade supplies backed by product experts so you can quickly and easily find what you need. Plus, you can count on access to a committed team ready to go the extra mile for you. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
What's up, Cedar Valley, and hello to the Hawkeye State. This is Cornstalks and Sports Talk, your Iowa-based sports show here on AM 950, KOEL, and KOEL.com. My name is Elliot Clough, at Elliot Clough on Twitter. I'm a UNI insider for Town Square Media, and I'm your host. Great stuff on today's show. Kennington Lloyd Smith, he's the Hawkeye beat writer for the Des Moines Register. He's joining us to talk a little bit about Joe Wieskamp and Luka Garza signing NBA contracts this week. And then wide receiver for UNI Football Quan Hampton is hopping on to talk the offseason, what to expect versus Air Force, the offense, and more. But today I want to start off by talking a little bit more about NIL Collectives. The collectives have started to reach the Missouri Valley Conference, and that is really what has prompted this. There's been one at Bradley for a little while now, but one started at SIU, Southern Illinois, this week for football, and then Illinois State followed it up with a all-athletes collective. So that's every single sport. I don't know anything more about how much that's going to work. I'm going to follow along with Jim Benson from the Pantograph in Bloomington to follow along with that, but we'll see what happens. Again, there's not a lot of information regarding NIL collectives and how they work, where the money comes from. It's obviously donors, but there's just a little bit of shadiness to it all. And maybe it's because I've grown up having seen college sports sort of have that purity. You know, nobody gets paid. Nobody's supposed to get paid to play college sports. That was the way it was for the entirety of my life until 2 years ago. And so maybe it's me. Maybe I see it being shady for that reason, because it's pretty much the wild, wild west right now for the NIL, especially with these collectives, essentially making college sports pay to play, at least the big college sports, football, basketball, etc. And so before we continue, we did talk about this with Kenneth Murphy of WHO 13 a few months ago. So if you want to go back and listen to that podcast, you can. And we probably should define really what a collective is. And for those of you that don't know, it's essentially, well, like I said, donors coming together to pay athletes to play for their school. There are a few player-led collectives like the one at Iowa, but as far as I know, it's mostly donors coming together and saying, hey, we'll give you XYZ money to play here. For Iowa and Iowa football specifically, I don't know if basketball is involved in that. Man, I should probably check that. But for football, what it entails is players showing up to events, doing autograph signing, taking photos. I believe it involves more than that, but you can check that out yourself. You can be a part of that collective. You'll receive personal messages from the players and stuff like that too. I like that. I think that's cool. Now, you know, the millionaire in town who runs the company that keeps the city afloat, you know, maybe not, that's a little bit dramatic, but the guys that live in the city that have lived there for a long time, that are huge Hawkeye, Buckeye, I don't know, Washington Husky fans that start these collectives and are offering to pay some of these athletes 6 figures, sometimes maybe even 7 figures to play for their schools. That's what I don't like. And that's what gives me the, I guess, maybe heebie-jeebies probably isn't the right word, but sets off the alarm bells in my head. And that's what I don't like about NIL collectives, because it was when these collectives started, it's really just these donors coming together and saying to certain players, how much? I got a check right here, a blank check. How much will it take for you to play for my school? And personally, my expectation when the NIL stuff started, and I'm sure a lot of people felt this way, and it's what they expected, was college athletes being able to make money, obviously, off their name, image, and likeness by way of selling, T-shirts with their name on it. Noah Carter, Bowen Bourne, AJ Green. They did this last season for basketball. And then maybe partnering with the local car dealership, Dan Deary in the Cedar Valley, or the pizza place downtown. I know one of the McCaffrey brothers, I think it was Patrick, partnered with a pizza place in Iowa City. Like that kind of stuff. Being like, hey, my name's Patrick McCaffrey. I play basketball. Not necessarily say anything about Iowa. It's a gray area there. I'm not really sure how that works. But my name's Patrick McCaffrey. Go down to Main Street and try Happy Pizza. Go try it out. That's where the purity of college basketball, college football, college sports still remains to me. And, that could be a crazy deal too. Who knows? Maybe these guys like Bryce Young at Alabama, Caleb Williams of USC, they sign these incredibly lucrative deals for national companies. Maybe they sign with a Gatorade or with a Pepsi or something like that. I don't know. Again, that's where the gray area comes in of the NCAA partnering with some of these companies. So therefore, the athletes can't. That's an assumption. I don't really know. Anyway, I also expected the majority of these collective things to happen at these bigger schools, right? The Alabama, the Ohio State, the Iowa, the Florida, the Cal, but not to reach the smaller conferences, the smaller schools, like, teams in the MVFC or the MVC as quickly as it has. Because, like I said, Bradley was the first school in the Missouri Valley Conference to start an NIL collective. Then it was Southern Illinois, of which they have one for their football team. And Illinois State, they just announced for the entirety of the athletic department, there will be an NIL collective for them. Again, SIU and Illinois State, they just launched this week. So it's a little bit more prevalent to talk about it right now. It's a little bit more common. It's been among fans and fan bases around the MVC. And so that's why we're talking about it here today on Corn Stalks and Sports Talk on AM 950, KOEL, and KOEL.com. And with everything I said just a moment ago, it's basically exemplifying, discussing, displaying why I am so torn on these NIL collectives reaching the Missouri Valley Conference and the Missouri Valley Football Conference. I tweeted this out a couple days ago when Illinois State announced theirs. By the way, you can follow me on Twitter. It's at Elliot Clough, ELIOTCLOUGH. I'm torn between I don't like this one bit and, if the big schools are going to do it, smaller ones better try to keep up. Because that's really what it's been for all of college sports history, is trying to keep up with those major programs, the Power 5 programs, the Group of 5 programs. That's what it is for FCS schools and mid-major schools like UNI, like Illinois State, like Mercer, like formerly James Madison, like, I don't know, Sam Houston State, South Dakota State, right? And I said it. I love the NIL on its face. When these players can go out and say, hey, my name's AJ Green, my name's Benny Sapp III, my name's Patrick McCaffrey, my name's Hunter Deckers. I want to represent you, and I want you to give me money for it. or like Bowen Bourne did with Square One Vintage in Cedar Falls, where he's just posting on his Instagram saying, hey, check this place out, and he gets some clothes in exchange. I think that's great. I love that. It's a way for these young guys to integrate themselves with the community and break out of the bubble that can be college athletics. You can be sucked into your team and your staff at all times and not really break that bubble, because these guys live together, they eat together, they work out together. And if you're out and initiating contact with the community, that is such a great thing, and especially in a community like Cedar Falls, like Waterloo, where there are so many fantastic people. And so I am so pro that. I am incredibly for that, especially if it's a local place or through creative work. I know a few of the football guys. I think Spencer Petras and Alex Padilla started a podcast together, and they're interviewing other athletes, and I'm sure they've got sponsorships, corporate sponsorships there. But this pay-to-play stuff is really where I'm just, I mean, one, it harms the smaller schools who can't put together or just don't have a collective. Smaller schools are already at disadvantage because of facilities, because of, well, the markets aren't as big, so the local companies might not have the funds to partner with them for NIL deals. I mean, it's just disadvantage after disadvantage, and I'm sure that coaches see it, athletes who are coming up see it. Like, Alabama can give me $300,000 if I go there. I don't know about South Dakota. South Dakota might be able to offer up $2,000 if and when they ultimately get an NIL collective. But this has to be part of the reason why Noah Carter left UNI basketball, why Omar Brown left UNI football. And Carter's at Missouri now, obviously, and Omar Brown is at Nebraska. And that's not even a shot at them. I understand it, and I'm not saying that's the entirety of it either. I'm sure these guys wanted to take a step up in supposed, believed level of competition and wanted to be able to show what they've got to scouts at the NBA and the NFL, etc. This is not a character shot. I mean, if I were in their position, I would probably do the same thing, or at least consider it. So I don't like it for that reason. These really talented kids who sort of, I don't know if grew up is the right phrase, or blew up or really started to get attention at these smaller schools, leave for a Nebraska, for a Missouri, for an Iowa, for a Minnesota, because these schools can offer the money that, or the NIL collectives can offer the money that these UNIs just can't, or don't just have the funds to, or the community support to. But thinking of it for a selfish standpoint, as a guy who went to UNI, who covered UNI for a long time, knows a lot of the athletes, and selfishly, better athletes to cover, great. Better, more athletes to cover, kids coming in out of high school that are really talented and saying, hey, Northern Iowa can pay me XYZ. I definitely am going to consider that more, or I'm definitely going to go there. That's why I would be pro NIL collectives for UNI and these smaller schools. But not every school is going to be able to do that. I'm sure HBCUs will be behind. I'm sure some of these smaller schools that are just joining the Division I level will be behind. Lindenwood is the only one I can think of off the top of my head. But when you're looking at UNI and the rest of the MVC, the rest of the MVFC particularly, I guarantee that North Dakota State and South Dakota State come up with one here soon for football. I guarantee it. And South Dakota State had a really good basketball team for a few years there, too. I could see that happening. I mean, SIU has one for football. I wouldn't be surprised if South Dakota puts one together for football. Western Illinois, Indiana State, Illinois State. Obviously, Illinois State's there. But Western Illinois and Indiana State have fallen from the graces of when they were really good at football or basketball for Indiana State. And so I'm sure there are people in the fan base, alumni, that are like, we got to get one of those things together soon and get ahead of schools like UNI. Get ahead of schools like Valparaiso, because we need any sort of edge we can get, and our play on the court or on the field is not doing it enough. And so we'll see. I'm sure Myers Hendrickson from Western Illinois is all over that, because that program needs some help. I'll tell you that right now. But whether the local team UNI catches up to the rest of the field on NIL collectives is TBD, or the majority of the MVFC catches up for that matter. 3 teams now. I'm sure there will be more in the future for both the Missouri Valley Conference and the Missouri Valley Football Conference. It's more about when than if. So we will see. My name is Elliot Clough. I'm a UNI insider for Town Square Media. We've got our next segment coming up in just a few with Quan Hampton, team captain and wide receiver for UNI football. He's going to tell us about the offseason, the new offense, Theo Day, Air Force, and more. So don't go anywhere. We got more Corn Stalks and Sports Talk coming up in just a few right here on AM 950, KOEL, and KOEL.com.
And we're back for this second segment here on Corn Stalks and Sports Talk, your Iowa-based sports show here on AM 950, KOEL, and KOEL.com with me, Elliot Clough, at Elliot Clough on Twitter. So some big news from former Hawkeye Hoopers this week as both Joe Wieskamp and Luka Garza were signed to NBA contracts. Wieskamp to a standard deal, and Garza's contract details have not come out yet. But now on to tell us about his thoughts on those deals and more is Kennington Lloyd Smith, Iowa Hawkeyes beat writer from the Des Moines Register. Kennington, so this Wieskamp deal, the Spurs moved off DeJounte Murray, and that's a pretty big indication to most NBA fans that they're no longer gunning to win a bunch of games. Would you say this is more of a reflection of Wieskamp earning that contract or the Spurs starting their rebuild?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. When you look at what Joe Wieskamp did last year with the Spurs, I mean, he was able to play on the active team for about 29 games. He didn't play a lot, but he averaged over 30 minutes as a part of their G League team, where he was a pretty main player on that team, averaging 13 points a game. Obviously a versatile shooter, versatile defender, great shooter, somebody that fits the current mold of an NBA, somebody that you want as a role player. So I think that he showed enough for them to, warrant them bringing him back and trying out for the team next year. And I think just overall, we're looking at the Spurs moves. I think they were trending toward a rebuild anyway. I think that they look at Joe Wieskamp as somebody who showed them enough in his rookie year to warrant them considering him as a part of their future plans. So I think that's kind of where the two kind of coincide, is that they're bringing him on to see if he'll make the team in training camp, the 15-man roster, and see if he can carve out a larger niche for himself on this year's team versus last year's team.
And when you say sort of taking a shot on him based on his play, especially in the G League, $4.4 million on a 2-year deal in the NBA is nothing. Yeah. So it's very low risk, possible high reward, depending on how Wieskamp pans out for the Spurs. And I'm sure when people who are maybe more casual fans or haven't seen what he's done for the Austin Spurs, he's played 29 games, averaged 7.1 minutes and 2.1 points per game in his actual NBA time. I'm sure some people are looking at that and thinking, what's the deal? But you're also talking about possibly getting a larger role this year, probably playing some more minutes. What do you think that role looks like for Wieskamp?
I think it's just coming off the bench, just providing shooting and solid defender. I think he's a prototypical 3-and-D type of player off of the bench, somebody who can come in, knock down open shots, and somebody who can be counted on to be, a solid defender with whichever assignment that he's guarding. I don't foresee him getting any plays called for him or any ISO type of situations where he's going to have to create a lot with the ball in his hands. But just in situations, 10, 15 minutes a game, maybe where he can just kind of come in and just provide some spot minutes for, whoever's going to be starting at the three. Maybe it's Keldon Johnson, for example, have him come off for a few minutes. Wieskamp goes and stabilizes some things and comes off the bench. So he's definitely somebody who all NBA teams need somebody like a Joe Wieskamp, somebody who's like 6'7", 6'8", long arms, can jump in the passing lanes, can guard, 2s, 3s, and knock down perimeter shots. I mean, that's where the NBA is going. So that's kind of what I foresee for him. If he continues to progress, maybe he can have a larger role off the bench. Maybe he can even be somebody who maybe even potentially starts. This is like way down further projection, obviously. But like just, somebody who can be kind of like a starter. Maybe somebody, I don't think this is like an exact player comp, but if you remember somebody like a Tabo Cephalosha who started on the Thunder for so many years, like long, versatile defender, somebody who could knock down perimeter shots, but it wasn't like a huge fixture on the offense. But he was just somebody who, was a good defender, could shoot a little bit. And there was like better offensive pieces on the bench. I think that was when James Harden was there with the team as well. So I don't know if that's an exact player comp, but that's just somebody that pops into my head. So that's kind of what I foresee for Wieskamp in terms of like his short-term trajectory and then maybe what he could be in the long term if he continues to develop.
Preferably a better shooter than Tabo Cephalosha.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
But that was quite a throwback for the NBA fans out there. I know when he was coming out of the draft, a lot of people were like, he's just a shooter. But like you mentioned, 6'7", 6'8", he can defend.
Right. Yeah, he can jump in. I mean, he's not – I don't know if somebody who can just lock down and take somebody out of the game, but a willing defender, somebody who's going to make his offensive opponent work for it. And like I said before, somebody who can jump in the passing lanes and create opportunities for the offense as well. So I think he can be, capable defender. Again, a 3-and-D type of guy. I think that, that's something that, especially for a young team like the Spurs, and when you have young players that come into an organization and all of them were, maybe a lot of them were lottery picks. A lot of them were star players on their team. You need young players who are just going to fill a role and make the most out of the role and be comfortable in that role. I didn't get a chance to cover Joe Wieskamp, but just from what I've heard about him and the things that I've seen from afar, he seems like somebody who wants to do a lot to just progress the team. It's not so much about his own personal, like I just want to get mine and play kind of selfishly. I think he just wants to conform to whatever like is best for the team. And that's what you need when you're trying to rebuild something like what the Spurs have had. So I think that it's a good fit for him, and I'll be excited to see what happens in training camp. The Spurs are going to carry a lot of players on their training camp roster. So it's, by no guaranteed means that he's going to make the 15, but I know that he's going to, compete hard, and it'll be interesting to see for sure.
And you brought up the fact that he's a guy who's going to do what's best for the team. That's Spurs culture right there. Right, I have a feeling that Greg Popovich is going to love Wieskamp. Again, we're talking with Kennington Lloyd Smith. He's the Iowa beat writer for the Des Moines Register here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk. He's joining us to talk a little bit about Luka Garza and then Joe Wieskamp, of course, signing NBA deals this week. So I mentioned Garza. He fell in the draft because of his slow feet, right? That's just kind of the sentiment that he had tagged to him, despite being a fantastic player at the college level. Do you see Garza eventually earning himself a standard deal in the NBA, maybe by way of signing this deal with the T-Wolves that he did a couple days ago?
Yeah, I think that with Garza, it's kind of a wait and see type of scenario. I think that what I will credit him on is he has done a great job of transforming his body from where he was at Iowa and how much he weighed in his play style to where he is currently in the NBA. I think that was a huge question. That's something that I had questions about as well. Like I said, I didn't cover Garza either. I came the summer after he graduated out of the program. And I had similar questions. I said, in the NBA where there's not enough zone defense, if he gets caught on a switch on the perimeter, is he going to be able to hold his own? He's lost a lot of weight. I thought that he was really impressive last year with the summer league with the Pistons, and then all throughout his time with the Pistons as well. And I thought it was even a bit of a surprise when he got released by the Pistons. I thought he did enough to, to stay on that roster. So I think that he can eventually be somebody who maybe could develop into like a backup center type of role. Obviously with the Timberwolves, the fit is interesting because they do have Cat, they do have Rudy Gobert as well. So it's going to be hard for Garza to carve out a role for himself on the regular Timberwolves roster. But I think obviously the allure and the angle of playing with the Des Moines team, their G League affiliate, is obviously huge. I think that he can continue his development from what we saw with the Pistons G League team. Just similar to Joe Wieskamp, Garza is somebody who didn't play a lot with the Pistons. He got a few starts at the end of the year, but with the G League team with the Pistons, he started every game. He was a 20 and 10 guy with the Pistons G League affiliate. So this is obviously somebody who has ability. I think that for him, he's so early on in his transformation as a player from what he was at Iowa to kind of where he is right now. I think that this upcoming year will determine a lot in terms of where his NBA future will lie. It kind of was in limbo a little bit after the Pistons released him, and then he played with the Trailblazers Summer League team. Then he didn't stick on with the Blazers. Even myself, I was kind of thinking to myself, is he going to get another opportunity? Is he going to have to go the overseas route? But I think that this opportunity with the Timberwolves is going to be an opportunity for him to continue to show not only the Timberwolves, but the rest of the NBA where he's at in his development and what he could be, moving forward versus what they might have saw during his Iowa career.
And I mean, who knows? Maybe he becomes that third big for the T-Wolves. He's a guy who can shoot. And as we talked about with Wieskamp, shooting's invaluable in the NBA.
Right, exactly. Especially when you're talking about, big men as well who can step out and kind of stretch the floor and all of that. And they're going to need spacing on the Timberwolves team as well. So, it'd be interesting with Garza. He's in like a little bit different situation than Wieskamp, where it's like the Spurs are a team that very likely going to be in that top 3-5 draft pick range. And then you have a team like the Timberwolves that they're ready to try to go and win something right now. So there, it's kind of interesting that they're kind of like on opposite ends of the NBA spectrum there. But I expect Garza to go in there and compete and try to bring something to the table. But if he does end up on a two-way, or if he's on the the G League team, I know he's going to have a huge role on that team, which will help him continue to get more tape out there. And also just allow for, people in Iowa to go out and see him play a lot more often now he'll be, basically back home.
I saw your article on the Des Moines Register website, which, by the way, go give it a read. How much do you think the G League affiliate being in Iowa affected their willingness to sign him, to drive ticket sales maybe at lower level, and get him in a state where he played in college and was beloved?
Yeah, I think that did play some part in it. I think that obviously there is a natural fan attraction there for him. I think that also for Garza, it probably is an opportunity for him to feel really comfortable where he's at. Like, he can be on this G League team and be in a place where he's very familiar, and be close to people like, people like at Iowa at the basketball program, be close to Coach Fran McCaffrey, be close to, the current players on the team and the relationships that he's built. So I definitely think that was, some part of it. I don't think that was the sole motivating factor, obviously, but, it is pretty cool that he'll have a chance to come back and play at home and be comfortable. And, I definitely think it's going to drive, ticket sales. I think that people are going to be excited to come out and watch him play, and honestly watch a different type of player than they saw at Iowa. Somebody who's a lot slimmer, somebody who has gotten quicker on his feet, who's probably going to be shooting from the perimeter more often. So it'll be a chance for Iowa fans to kind of see like the next gen Luka Garza, if you will.
Again, we have Kennington Lloyd Smith from the Des Moines Register on today. He's the Iowa beat writer for the paper, as we're talking here on Corn Stalks and Sports Talk on AM 950. KOEL and KOEL.com. Kennington, we can't let you go without talking some Iowa football as the season quickly approaches. I'm going to have a guy who covers South Dakota State on next week, Matt Tollefson from the Jackrabbit Illustrated, to sort of tell us what he's seen from the team this year and what Hawkeye fans can expect. I guess my question for you is, if there was anything in particular you wanted to know about South Dakota State that you might not already know, what would that be, and what do you think fans want to know about the Jackrabbits going into week one?
I think ultimately fans are going to want to know how is their offense going to test Iowa's defense. I think I saw one thing about South Dakota State where they have like 6 FCS All-Americans or something like that preseason. Are they mainly on offense or are they mainly on defense? And I'm going to do my own research on them as well for something that I'm going to try to put out next week. So that's some of the questions that I have. How are they going to test Iowa's offense? And I think that the big question for fans, and I don't know if anybody on South Dakota State side can answer this, but what is Iowa's offense going to look like against their defense? I think that personally, this game is not going to, it may be fans don't expect it to be that easy of a game. They are an FCS opponent, but they are one of the best FCS teams. I mean, this is a team that's been in the Final Four. They've been in the FCS National Championship recently. This is a good team, and there's been so much conversation about Iowa's offense and what they should change, if they have changed anything, the simplification of it. There are just so many buzzwords and topics going on around the offense that I just imagine a scenario at Kinnick where it's going to be a sellout and the energy is going to be there. But let's say it gets to the end of the first quarter and Iowa's winning 3-0 or it's 0-0. There is going to be a certain anxiety and energy in the stadium that is going to be like kind of hard to quantify, of like the kind of nervousness, like, oh, the offense isn't like moving how they're supposed to, and this is like feeling a lot like last year. So those would probably be the two questions that I have is, is South Dakota State's going to push Iowa's defense in any way? And from the Iowa side, how much success is their offense going to have against this team that, talent-wise is perceived as lower level than a Big Ten school, obviously, but they play good football as well. So I think it's going to be an exciting game.
All right. I'm taking notes. Get ready for next week's interview. And I'll tell you this, as a UNI insider for Town Square Media, I've seen South Dakota State play a lot of football. and that is a good football team, man.
Right.
UNI has beaten them quite a bit in the years past, even when they've been one of these top teams in the country. But they're going to have some NFL players, man. They're legit. So very excited to watch that game coming up next week. Again, he is Kennington Lloyd Smith on the Iowa football and basketball beat with Des Moines Register at SkinnyKenny _ on Twitter. Go give him a follow there. Kennington, we appreciate you, man.
No, thank you for having me on.
All right, folks, don't go anywhere. We will be right back here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk with UNI wide receiver Quan Hampton. He's going to help us preview the season, look at the wide receiver group, talk a little bit about quarterback Theo Day and that matchup next week against Air Force. So don't go anywhere. We got more Cornstalks and Sports Talk in just a few right here on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com. UNI football opens its season coming up next Saturday in Colorado Springs as they face off with the Air Force Falcons for the first time ever. And here to tell us about camp, the offseason, and a little more about his team captain and wide receiver for the Panthers, Quan Hampton, here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com. Quan, we appreciate you joining us, man. We've heard a lot about this new offense under Bodie Reeder and Ryan Clanton. What can you tell us about it and what you've seen so far?
Mostly. So I missed the spring due to, just not being able to practice. So I seen it, but I didn't really get to practice in the offense, So coming back this fall for fall camp, it's very explosive. You know what I mean? And mostly you can tell like that the coaches are working really hard to figure out different ways to use the different pieces that we got. So it's a lot of creativity going on, and that's what really makes the offense go. So it's not like us going out and finding like this offense that doesn't exist. It's just we're finally utilizing all the tools that we have. So it should open up a lot on offense.
So when you said the word explosive, I'm sure a lot of Panther fans immediately think of you and of Dion on the offensive side of the ball. Do you feel like this is more tailored to you two specifically?
No, I think it's tailored to all of us. Logan Wolf, Sam Schnee, Dion, Sergio, Vance, Dom in the backfield. I think the whole we got a bunch of tools, so we plan on using them all.
And so for you specifically, do you expect your on the field role to change much?
Yeah, I do. Last year I was pretty much in a slot the whole time, so I feel like it was easier for teams to, kind of like get a hold of me. Like they kind of knew what I was doing because I didn't move around a lot, so I think this year, like I'll be moving around a lot more, which I'll be outside and inside. So it's gonna be a lot better for me and the team.
And so you mentioned tailoring to just about everybody's strengths. Being at practice the few times I've been able to go and watching what you guys have been doing. I've been told by a good amount of people, some of your teammates, and I think we might have talked about it a little bit when I got to talk to you. But what I've heard pretty much a consensus is that this offense has taken a leap and that it's significantly better than last year. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, most definitely. And it got a lot to do with us coming together as an offense too. Last year we didn't really, the offense as a whole, we wasn't really confident in what we were trying to do. But this year we got a plan and we all kind of bought in. So we know what we're trying to do. So you can tell it makes a difference.
Again, we're talking with Quan Hampton, wide receiver for UNI football here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk on AM 950, KOEL and KOEL.com. Quan, you mentioned the confidence. Does that come from the new system and tailoring to all of you guys? Does it come from Bodie Reeder coming in and Ryan Clanton taking over the offense too?
It comes from both. We got coaches that you can tell that they really work hard to come up with a plan and come up with different ways to, make this offense be successful. But it also comes with the success, us, looking good and like feeling good at practice and seeing where this offense could really take us. That's where a lot of the confidence comes from, just the success, of getting a lot of reps and everything we do at practice.
A lot of the sentiment around the fan base too is that, Coach Farley's always going to put together a great defense, right? And right. It's about what the offense can put together. Do you feel like that is accurate, one, and two, is this the year? Is this the year where the offense takes that leap, like we've talked about a little bit?
Honestly, since I didn't really know much about the program before I got here, but then my first 2 seasons here, I started to realize there was a difference between the defensive side of the ball and the offense. I didn't know at first, and honestly, I feel like this is the year where that changes. Defense is still up there, but I feel like the offense is we're climbing up too. You know what I mean? So I feel like we're doing a good job of matching our defensive energy, but I mean that's all talking to go out there and prove it.
A big part of the offense is Theo Day, who we know will be starting once again this year at Air Force for week 1. How has he developed and taken on the offense with this second install he's gone through in 2 years?
I mean, Theo, he's a smart guy, so once you put it in his face once, he kind of got it. And a lot of the offenses are the same. It's just, different ways of using, of running it. So I feel like you can tell he's a lot confident. He's a lot confident in his play now. He's kind of becoming more of a leader. I would say he looks like the towards the end of camp. That's the best I've seen Theo. He's coming out of his shell a little bit. So I'm excited, but I'm also excited for Matt too, because Matt, I'm either way it go. If something was to happen to Theo and Matt had to step in, I'm confident in both our quarterbacks. So I'm excited for the season, man. We got 2 quarterbacks that can go out there and can ball.
Matt Morrissey, the second string quarterback there. So when we're talking about Theo and him playing quarterback, one big thing that is a factor for the offense this year, on top of the new system coming in, is the fact that, you led the team in receptions and you only played 8 games last year. Your quarterback's back. How does that provide a little extra added level of confidence, knowing that he's a guy that seeks you out and tries to get you the ball?
I mean, yeah, unfortunately, the season ended short for me, but I would say I always had the confidence, and I still got it now, man. I'm just excited to go out there and compete, and see what could happen this year with me playing a full season and being healthy. So I'm excited, man.
Big difference too going into the season is no Isaiah Weston. So are you expecting to be the number 1 guy this season?
I mean, honestly, I'm here to do whatever I can to help the team out, but we got a lot of guys. Isaiah, we took a loss with that, but we also we gained some receivers. You know what I mean? So we got all type of receivers from Sergio. He's really stepping up, and because he knows what role he got to play. So he's starting to come out of his shell a little bit. You can tell he's starting to gain confidence. We missed Logan last year because of the injury, but he's back. This is the best I've seen Logan. So I mean, you got Sergio and you got Logan too. So we lost Isaiah, but I still think the unit is as strong as it was last year.
You mentioned your season getting cut short a little bit. I know that you had to go through some of the rehab and the stuff to get back and get healthy. How did that go for you?
It went well, man. So I've had this injury before when I was at my old school, but I never really got the procedure done to it. So I thought that that last year, missing last season, I thought that would be the best thing for me to do in order for me to come back this year, healthy and being able to compete for my last full season. So, I worked really hard this summer trying to just gain that step back. It's hard because you got to find that balance and working, but you don't want to overdo it, because it's a toe injury, you do everything on the toe. So, I mean, pretty much I worked. The hardest thing for me was finding cleats to fit my feet, with my soles. So, but other than that, man, it's been a grind, but everything that I did, it's starting to show because I'm feeling better than I ever have.
I tell you what, I've seen you at practice, and you look like Quan. You look like you're 100% healthy. Do you feel 100% healthy, good to go?
Yeah, I mean, when I'm going. I feel great. I feel healthy. It's the only time it bothers me is after, but that comes with any injury. You know what I mean? So, but I feel great right now.
So there has been a lot of talk of the wide receiver group. You mentioned Sergio, Sam, a few of those other guys coming back. And I think most UNI football fans, I mean, they know you, they know Dion, they know Sam, especially after last year. But you got Logan Wolf, who you mentioned, who's coming back, who's hoping to have his first full season healthy. You've got some of these FBS transfers. What can you tell us about this group and maybe some guys that will possibly surprise some Cedar Falls and UNI fans?
So I'm gonna tell y'all the one guy I think that will for sure surprise, all the UNI fans would be Des Moines. He's the transfer from Iowa, and it's because of the role that he has. He's a guy that we can use him everywhere on the offense. So I'm not gonna say too much, but that's gonna be exciting to see. I think that'll be a big surprise, and also, just having Logan back, that'll be like one of the biggest. That's everybody know what Logan can do from this area. He's from Cedar Falls, so. I think he's back to himself, but we got a strong unit. We got a lot of guys that can do a lot of different things, so it's going to be an exciting year. And we got a lot of depth too. So last year we didn't have as much depth, but this year, we strong from the top to the bottom. So, we have no weak links. Everybody's all bought in. So, man, it's going to be an exciting year for sure.
Again, we're talking with Quan Hampton, wide receiver from UNI Football here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com. So we talked about the wide receiver group. Anybody else on the offense rather that might surprise some people? I mean, I know Harrison Bay-Bowie's coming in, transfer from Eastern Illinois. Jaden Scott was sidelined for a large part of last year. Any of these other guys that you've seen in practice that have really stepped up and Panther fans can be excited to see this fall?
Yeah, those two guys you named, like I'm sure they'll be able to help us out a lot this year, So, it's we got a lot of guys and everybody can play. The biggest thing is I hope everybody can stay healthy. If everybody can stay healthy, this would be an amazing year.
Last thing for you, Quan, season opener next week at Air Force. What can you tell us about them? What to expect? And I know the offense is kind of notorious for being an option offense. Anything else you can tell us about?
For the ones who work hard to ensure their crew can always go the extra mile, and the ones who get in early so everyone can go home on time, there's Grainger, offering professional-grade supplies backed by product experts so you can quickly and easily find what you need. Plus, you can count on access to a committed team ready to go the extra mile for you. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.